freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 451 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearmsauctions.com, where you set the price on guns, ammo, and accessories. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. Our theme today is the 2024 Gun Rights Policy Conference, and our guest today is Adam Kraut. Adam is an attorney with a background in law and firearms-related matters, representing individuals, industry members, and pro-rights organizations in state and federal courts, and is the executive director of the Second Amendment Foundation.
You know, the cool kids call it SAF. So welcome back to the show, Adam.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you have been executive director for how many years now?
A little over a year and let's call it 6 months. I started in November 2022.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it's been so much longer. It's funny because I think you guys fight so many court cases that it feels like, you know, you should have been, multiple years. But I love everything that SAF does. I love the way that you guys do it. You are.
Because they win.
Because you win.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We do our best.
And you've really rebranded the whole look and feel of your online presence. And that is a huge undertaking all by itself. So you've done all that in a year and a half. That's why it feels like you've been in that office for much longer.
Didn't do it alone. So fortunately, I had help with that. Our senior vice president, Lauren Hill, she's been very instrumental in getting projects like that off the ground and making sure that, you know, the trains leave the station at the correct time, because that would be very difficult for me to have accomplished.
Seriously. Well, it takes a great team working very well together. And nobody knows that more than I do with all the hats I wear. If I didn't have an awesome team behind me, it would be a big old train wreck. Nobody would be leaving any stations. So
Yeah.
So Adam, before we start, I guess we already started anyway, but did you wake up one day in school and say, I want to be an attorney and fight for justice for firearms related things, or what happened?
Oh,
what's a nice guy like you?
I think you have the cape or something, you know?
I just told this story yesterday on a different interview I did. So,
Awesome.
I graduated college. I had a degree in political science. At the time, I think I was still working in the restaurant industry as a server, and I'd done that since I was, 16. And what do I do next? So I took a year off, thought about it. I went to work at a landscape company during that time. Might have still been actually at the landscape company. Anyway, I was between what to do in life, and let's try law school. Why not? My dad was pushing me to go. He was a lawyer. He and my uncle had a small a general practice in town, so he was kind of really pushing me to do that. Fine. So I applied to law school, got in, went at night. And during that time, I left the landscape company and went to work at a gun shop, casting bullets in the back. And within about a month and a half or 2 months, I became the general manager of the store, something they never had before. But just from walking out and saying like, hey, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we selling that? Get to my last year of law school, night student, so 4-year instead of 3-year program. And I, at the time, had been really kind of active on the Pennsylvania Gun Forum. And I saw this attorney's name constantly mentioned, Joshua Prince. So I looked him up, and he was about an hour away. So I sent an email. I said, hey, going into my last year, looking for an internship so I can get some practical experience to be able to be marketable. So you do firearms law, kind of interesting. Also, don't think I actually want to really practice law. And that got about the reception one would think it got. I got an email from his father who owned the firm, said like, thanks, but no thanks. And I went back and said, no, you don't understand. Looking for an internship. Don't need to be paid, just need experience. And that's where I ended up working for 5 years. So I guess I did good enough there that they liked me to keep me around and let me, work. So during that time, a lot of learning in the first couple of years, but also representation as far as individuals and industry members, and then some organizations as well. And in the summer of 2019, I left for another organization in the space where I started as the director of legal strategy. I departed there in August of 22 as the vice president of programs, and had a little bit of a employment gap, I guess, about 2 months. Made a few phone calls, and Alan was one of the people I had called, and spoke to him and just said, hey, it's been nice working with you. Hope we can do it again in the future. And I went away on vacation, went backpacking up in Glacier, and I came back to a lot of text messages and emails and phone calls from him. And that's where that conversation kind of started. And when I was looking at what I wanted to do next in life, it was either kind of run an organization or run a business, which, in some ways it is kind of a business. Our business is suing the government and winning. And so that conversation, kind of went on, and ultimately ended up with me here. And since then, been able to hire a couple of great additions, and we're looking to continue to add staff as necessary to expand our programmatic and educational functions. But, it's been a very interesting ride for somebody who's had no ambition to, from a younger age anyway, to be where I am. It's just been, as I like to have told people, sheer dumb luck a lot of ways, and people opening doors and me just being interested in what's on the other side of the door.
That is just awesome. And for you to be the person that is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but this organization has been a first generation organization. You are the first major step towards making it a second generation organization.
Yeah. So the organization was founded in 1947, not 1947, 1974. Got to get those numbers right. By Alan Gottlieb. And he's still around. He's our executive vice president. And, as he's getting up there in the years, I think he's starting to think about what the future of SAF looks like, and how his work the last 50 years can continue to thrive moving forward. So I'm very excited about the opportunity I have here. It's been very interesting, and really good to work with somebody who's so well respected within the space and has accomplished quite a bit.
So I have one more question, and then I'll leave you guys to figure out what you get to say. But so when you have a court case, are you the one that goes to the court and challenges things, or are you you know what I'm talking about? Are you Perry Mason?
How does that work?
Are you like Perry Mason?
So it works a couple different ways. There are a couple of cases that I am an attorney of record on. There are 2 cases specifically that I'm the lead attorney on. Well, I guess one now, was on one that's now up on appeal, and it's stayed. It was the 18 to 20 handgun purchase challenge out of West Virginia. And that's actually what kind of filled in the space in my short employment gap there. Alan asked me if I would do that. So that one we did win at the district court. That's on appeal at the Fourth Circuit. And because we're so lucky to work with a number of very good attorneys, I was able to give that to them to handle on appeal. But right now the Fourth Circuit said we got another case we got to decide first before we get to that. So there are a couple cases that I have my name on. There's a couple that I'm actively litigating and engaged in, and then the rest of them we hire a group of outside counsel depending upon where the case is brought. We're fortunate that because we've been doing this so long, we have a number of great attorneys in a variety of states across the country that we get to work with, and fortunately for almost all those attorneys, except on appeal, court appearances really aren't necessary. We're very lucky in that most of what we do is written, and we don't actually have to go to court. So that's how that works.
Awesome.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that 18 to 20 year thing. I mean, for me, that's such a no-brainer. Like, if you are an adult, then you're an adult, period. End of story. It's not like, well, I'm
Yes.
adult-ish in this area of my life, and then, but not in that area of my life. So thank you for
Yes.
pushing that forward. So I want to talk about the event of the year. So if you are in the Second Amendment world, if you are in, pro-gun, pro-rights advocacy, the Gun Rights Policy Conference is the event of the year. You do not miss it. The cool kids call that one GRPC. So, can you tell us a little bit about that and the fact that you do have some second generation people really updating, and revitalizing the look of Second Amendment Foundation? Are we going to see something new and different at this year's GRPC? I mean, it's wonderful the way it is, so you don't have to, but I just wonder, tell folks about it. What is
Sure.
it? And why should they book their ticket immediately?
So I guess let's start with where it is this year. This year it's in San Diego, and it's September
Nice.
27th through the 29th. We've gotten a little bit of flack about where the location was this year, and I think it's pertinent to just kind of address that up front. Why would we do this event in a place that's very hostile to gun rights? And well, there's a very good reason for that. It's because we're not afraid to put on events in places that are hostile to gun rights. California has a massive gun owning population. And unfortunately, they're subject to a lot of laws and regulations that are probably the worst in the country as it comes to restrictions, if not the worst, certainly really high up there. The other thing is California is a laboratory for gun control ideas. And what starts in California often spreads to the other coast and everywhere in between where there's somebody who's willing to try it. So we felt that it was important to put on an event there. The other part of that is because it's in San Diego County gun owners, friends of ours, they have a very big and active group of individuals who are involved with their organization. Now, their stuff is more on the political side and getting the right people elected to office, but they've been very good allies in that. So part of it was also trying to make sure that we can get the people who would be interested on this type of stuff that are locals to attend. And of course, we switch where it's held every year, so it's never in the same place twice in a row. So this is I believe it's our 39th. My memory is failing on that one. But the Gun Rights Policy Conference was started in the 80s. I'm not going to give you the exact year because I would tell you what annual event this one was. But it was started with the idea of gathering lawyers, scholars, activists, individuals who are interested to share updates on what was happening in the Second Amendment world as far as rights, progress, failures, setbacks, strategies. And really, it became a place where you would get the individuals, the quote unquote who's who of the Second Amendment world attending and being able to interact with them if you're just a regular person who's not actually on a daily basis engaged in this. You get to meet some of the people who are and have conversations with them. So essentially it's a day and a half of presentations from individuals. We are currently working on the speaker list and the agenda and how it's going to flow this year. Those that attended last year will have noticed that there was some updating going on. The updating will continue this year as we continue to bring the event forward and make it so that it is something where not only is the information great, but the look and feel of it is also akin to what's being delivered on stage. So we're actively working on that. There's a lot of work to do. Again, unfortunate that I have a great team of individuals here at the foundation that are assisting with that, because God forbid event planning fell solely on my plate, we would have a rough time.
So what time is Newsom going to speak?
Oh,
we didn't invite him, but I would expect he probably would have declined.
Yeah, I think so too.
that would
I think it's really cool because, we've been going to these events every year for many, many years now. And I thought it was really cool when we went to Chicago. It's like,
Talk about a
yeah,
hostile
yeah,
place.
right. And it was like,
Mhm.
it was in Chicago. That was just awesome.
So
Yeah. It is,
I,
and that's something, again, so we got a little bit of flack from some people. And what was interesting was when I looked at where some of these people were located, they were also in not very gun-friendly states. So I kind of had to chuckle a little bit about the irony of the statement. But there was a thought behind it. And,
Mhm.
going to those places, if we held it every year in, say, Arizona or I won't use Texas because Texas isn't the best example. Sorry, Texans. But
That's true.
states that are traditionally very pro-gun. Okay, we all get together, but what's the point? You're leaving out the people that actually need the assistance. And the point of this is to get that information everywhere. And also, for that matter, it is live stream. So if you're interested and you can't actually make it, you can check out the live stream as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I am checking out your speaker list on your website now, which is saf.org. And then you click on the GRPC tab at the top. And it is, I mean, I'm scrolling and I'm scrolling and I'm scrolling. And there are so many amazing names, very knowledgeable people. It is a policy conference. So, we do get to learn a lot about, the legal ramifications of what it takes to keep our gun rights safe. We learn a little bit about the political angle. Then we have, influencers, for lack of a better word, people that are out there. I don't know that I could wear that title, but I am fortunate enough to be asked as a speaker. And, I'm not a lawyer and I am not a politician. But I'm somebody that understands the issues and can bring them together and help make normal English out of it, right? And so you've got a lot of great people like that that come and it's just an amazing place to connect with people. And I have formed actual real relationships and friendships by just bumping into people in the halls at these events. So
We prefer the term activist over influencer.
yes, absolutely. And even advocate. I kind of talk to about
Yeah.
myself as an advocate because I feel like that's a very positive
Mhm.
minded word. But yes, that much better than influencer. That kind of has a whole connotation to it,
It
doesn't
does.
it?
It
Well,
does.
and being in San Diego, I mean, there's a lot of people that are gun owners in San Diego that are they sit on their couch and they don't do anything. So maybe we
Everywhere.
could maybe I
Everywhere.
know it is everywhere, but maybe we could, wake some of those people up by having
Mhm.
this conference there and
Mhm.
get them to attend. And plus, you get so many books.
Yes.
There's so much information there. Besides meeting great people, there's all kinds of written books, all kinds of stuff there. So
Yes, and you have, I assume sometimes it's a space issue, how many vendors you have out in the halls, but there's almost always vendors that you can, connect with and get some great products and join some other groups and that sort of thing. Are we going to experience that in San Diego?
So we're looking at what the space looks like. We've had requests from a number of organizations for a table, but once we figure out the layout and what is available, then we'll start communicating with those groups as to yes, we have a spot for you, or unfortunately we don't this year. But nope, it's all headed that direction. Just a
Mm-hmm.
lot of other things that trying to
Yeah.
chase around as well.
There are some things in any event that stay fluid right up until day one, right?
Yeah.
Or day of. But what isn't fluid is the fact that people can start buying, not even buying, but obtaining their tickets because you put this whole thing on, and what does it cost the average Joe on the street?
Well, it depends. If you're flying in, it costs you your flight and your hotel room. If you're
Fair enough.
local, maybe parking in the parking lot. But the event itself is free, and we even do feed you.
It's amazing. I just don't know how you guys do it. I know it's because of the importance of donations. And so I always like to, encourage people to definitely support with your dollars. The saf.org right now. Go there immediately and then get your free ticket and then figure out your flight and be there because I'm going to be there and I'll be looking for you. All right. So moving on from GRPC, there's another event that is connected to it, but actually separate and is even newer. It hasn't been around as long as GRPC, called Amm-Con. Can you talk to us a little bit about what Amm-Con is?
I can tell you what I know about it. And you may have a better sense of some of it, just to be perfectly frank about that. But Amm-Con was designed as a way to get so-called, I guess, new media, or if you want to call it media 2.0, because that's how we like to refer to things these days. To get those individuals together to share, again, strategies, tips, techniques, things that they find are working in their delivery, whether it's somebody who's on YouTube or running a podcast or even writing. And really the purpose of it was, again, to share information that others could take home and implement to make their platform stronger. Of course, like GRPC, not everything's going to be applicable to everybody, because some people, are only going to care what the lawyers say and not the politicians or the people who are doing lobbying. And likewise, Amm-Con has something for everybody. So, if there's a individual talking about YouTube and you run a podcast, may not be applicable. Also might be, and particularly if you're interested in getting into that. So, it's a predecessor to the actual GRPC event, or it precedes it rather. It's on Friday. And certainly if you are engaged in any forms of new media 2.0, there's definitely individuals who have been very successful at it that can give you some tips and tricks. And also you get to, again, meet some of the quote unquote movers and shakers in the new media, and get to form those kinds of friendships and communication that you wouldn't otherwise necessarily have the opportunity to do.
Man, you nailed that. I could not do better than that. And I've been one of the MCs since its first inception. So
let's not be modest. I'm sure you could have.
No, you did great. And it is the Second Amendment Media Workshop. That's what it is. And you described it so perfectly. And each of our speakers, we're always asking, what can you teach us? We want you to be our speaker, but what can you teach us to make us better in our individual areas of work? And so you said that beautifully. And again, that is an ever growing list of speakers, because every year there's somebody new. Thank goodness there's somebody new that has stepped into this arena and brought their own unique flavor, or a new audience, maybe a younger audience, which we so need in this particular field. And so it is just an amazing day. It's pretty fast paced because we're trying to fit a lot into a short amount of time. But again, it is, if you're doing anything, I mean, all of us are media now because we have phones, right? So you don't have to have like a big fancy media badge necessarily to want to learn more about how to use the amazing equipment and opportunities we have available to us these days.
Yep.
And it's free as well. So, and it has its own website, Amm-Con, AMMCON.org.
And we're seeing in media that there's a lot of challenges there, because YouTube and some other channels are shadow banning them. They don't like what we're saying. The audience likes it, but they don't like it, so they're shutting us down. And so we can learn little tricks about how to do that. Like, we can't say anything about voting right now, about
election
integrity.
Oh, now we're gonna get this show's gonna get pulled.
But just stupid things like that. So it's a learning process.
It really is. So I so appreciate that SAF hosts that, because I think it's imperative that we are constantly learning and encouraging new people to come into this arena. So part of what Danny was just saying, I think, ties in that under the Biden administration, which, please, I hope it's nearing its end, but who knows, because we do have an election coming. But under the Biden administration and this incessant push to deprive citizens of their Second Amendment rights, SAF is busier than ever. you described the 18 to 20-year-old case that you pushed forward. What are some of the key big wins that you've had, and what should we be looking forward to that people need to be aware of and can help with their donations and helping spread the word?
So I think obviously the crown jewel, not necessarily recent, but it's the case that allows us to sue all these states and municipalities is McDonald versus City of Chicago back in 2010. That was filed the day Heller was decided. So that's, I think right now anyway, our crown jewel achievement. We've had some other wins over the past year. There have been honestly too many for me to even try to recount off the top of my head. But I think what's more important, rather than talking about just the victories, and you can find them on our website, is the work we're currently doing and where there's still issues. Because unfortunately, gun owners are apathetic, and particularly when there's an election and you get a Republican president, everybody thinks everything's going to be, right as rain. But the reality is that those who seek to deprive us of our rights don't stop. Doesn't matter whether they're in charge or not. So we always need to be moving in the correct direction. So having said that, right now I think we have about 55 active lawsuits. We just filed one earlier this morning that is challenging the ban on firearms on postal property. So when there will be another one that I believe hopefully tomorrow, if not tomorrow, later this week, that will be filed as well. I'm just not going to talk about what that one is yet because it's not filed. But we do have a number of cases, particularly post-Bruin, challenging sensitive places. I think those are important because once that right to carry, which was already, acknowledged in Heller, but really spelled out in Bruin, you had states like New York, California, New Jersey, Maryland go and create these laws that said, okay, sure, you can carry, but you just can't carry here, 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 and here, which basically means you can't really carry anywhere. So those are important ones. We also have some challenges relating to permitting. As far as time barriers, certainly if there's exorbitant fees associated with that, that's stuff we'll look at as well. The ever popular assault weapons bans. We have, I think, 6 challenges to assault weapons bans. Same with magazine capacity challenges. And then there's a bunch of nuanced issues as well that maybe are not as broadly applicable to the general public. Or something that everyone cares about, but it does deal with individuals' ability to exercise their right to keep and bear arms. So, for instance, case dealing with foster parents and whether or not they can have firearms in their home. Again, is it going to apply to a large swath of the population? No, but it affects enough people that it is an important public issue that we felt it was necessary to address. So yes, we've been very busy, and I guess speaking of the Supreme Court, we do have another case that is back up in the Supreme Court that we had intervened in that deals with ATFs again, ATF and their rulemaking with as far as frames and receivers. So that one is scheduled to be briefed over the summer, an oral argument in October. And we're excited to hopefully prevail there. And given the decision that was just reached last week in Cargill, where the Supreme Court said the ATF did not have the authority to rewrite the law, and that's Congress's prerogative.
Thank you.
Yes, and I think it's important to point out there. So I filed. Moment of bragging, I guess. I filed the first challenge to the bump stock ban within hours of it being signed when I was working as outside counsel for my former employer. Unfortunately, our case is not the one that ultimately got the win, but somebody did get a win, and that's all that matters. But not one case that was filed that I had seen brought up the Second Amendment as a claim. Not one of them. They were all based on the Administrative Procedures Act and violations of administrative law. And if you look at how the media is portraying this victory, it's not, okay, government agency overstepped its bound. Congress is the one who's supposed to write law. It's the Supreme Court has legalized machine guns and other things like that. And it wasn't a gun issue. It was solely an administrative law issue. Guns just happened to be the vehicle, or an accessory in this case, the vehicle that got it from A to B. But so anyway, the point of that being, it wasn't a Second Amendment case. It was an Administrative Procedures Act case. And either way, it got a very good opinion. And that matters because when we look at other things that ATF has done and ongoing challenges, again, the framer and receivers one that's going up to the Supreme Court, or is there and will be argued or briefed over the summer and argued in the fall. And then the one that deals with ATF and pistol braces, again, Administrative Procedures Act. So these are all Cargill is helpful in the context of these other agency actions that are currently, the Biden administration has put forth.
Yes, absolutely. And, even the way you describe that and unpack that is so interesting because that whatever avenue you're using as your basis of argument really does matter. And so, everybody would think, well, clearly this was based on a Second Amendment challenge, the bump stock thing. And, because the Second Amendment supports, the Constitution supports the decision that ultimately was made on it. But that's kind of like gamesmanship, I think, in my mind. And maybe if I was a lawyer, I wouldn't think about it that way, but it feels like, strategery.
I mean, I guess it depends on the context you're referring to it as. If you're talking about how the opposition, if you will, I'm not sure I even like that word, but how the media is portraying it, I think it's so that they can frame the debate or argument in order to make people upset and to reach a certain conclusion, and not say, an agency's authority was restrained to what it should be, which I think anybody who has any sense of how things should be excited about, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, because all it takes is a president of not your party to get there and do things that you don't like.
Yes.
So yeah, it was a positive decision. It's something that we'll be able to use in other litigation we're doing, that while the rule itself does affect firearms and firearms rights, the constitutional challenges may not always be there in that regard.
My dad started fighting for gun rights back in the 60s and 70s, and I saw all these little chip away at our rights all the way from back then. And most of the little things were so small that no one could afford or would fight it. Thank God for an organization like this, the Second Amendment Foundation, because they are speaking for us. You talk about the small gun shops. I had probably $5,000 worth of those bump stocks that I had to cut up, and I've lost them. I couldn't fight the government with that.
As an individual. So you do need an organization that's powerful enough, well-funded enough, right? Knowledgeable enough.
But I have to say, so I had all these bump stocks, and I took the stocks out and cut them up, but I put the boxes on the top of my shelf like they were for sale, so that when the ATF come in, I could have a little fun with them. So I acted like I was dumb.
You little scamp.
Well, it's just because it was stupid. It's a piece of plastic, right? And it's like, let's use common sense, okay? Just a little bit of common sense. So I did, and everyone, hey, could you pull one of the? Someone come in plain clothes. Could you pull one of those down? Yeah. How much are these? They're $400. It's an empty box.
I mean, good for you if you can get $400 for an empty box, by the way.
Right?
I couldn't sell them. I never sold them.
Oh man.
But anyway,
that's hilarious.
Really, the fact is that they chip away. Small guy can't fight it, so it just happens. And thank you very much for what you do.
Absolutely, that's tremendous. Talk to us. The case that was just filed. Help people understand the significance of the
post office thing?
Yes, challenging post office gun ban. There's probably a bunch of people that don't even realize that, here in Arizona, we've got constitutional carry. So they've got their gun as part of their wardrobe. They pop in to buy a book of stamps. they've just done something really wrong, right?
Yeah, felony.
I did it yesterday.
Don't talk. We're recording right now. Stop talking, Dan. No, go ahead. Adam.
Yeah. So they're currently the way that the post office regulations are, and federal law is you can't carry in marked federal facilities, and the post office being one of them has regulations that it even extends to their parking lot, which has been an interesting point of conversation because I can remember when we did firearms law seminars back when I was in private practice, and one of the things we would advise people is that because not all post offices are their own facility on their own land, but in a shared space, things like that, that if the parking space is marked, postal service only, and you have a firearm, don't park there. Don't invite the issue. But anyway, the point being is that carrying a firearm inside the post office is unlawful and a felony offense. And when we look at what Bruin says and sensitive places and that whole doctrine, there is no logical basis or anything that would be certainly within our nation's history and tradition on firearms regulation that would include banning firearms from being carried in a post office. There's not an essential, sensitive government function going on, such as Congress or courts were the other one. There was mention of polling places, but that still remains to be seen. But those were kind of the ones that were outlined, and really the underlying thought process, pervasive one, is that in those places the government provides security for you. So if an individual has to disarm themselves for a short period of time, well, in congressional buildings and courthouses, absolutely.
But I'm saying in a post office, though, I'm
no,
no.
Correct. Yes, no, not in a post office. So that again, it just goes to certain elements that were kind of spelled out in Bruin. We think we'll be successful in this challenge, and we're looking forward to doing it. We're in a good court. We have a good judge. The judge that we got assigned to has had some favorable rulings. Hopefully the case remains with him. But we're also in the Fifth Circuit. And so far, I don't think the Fifth Circuit has found anything that they weren't willing to strike down as it related to gun laws. So here we go.
Well, I was at the post office yesterday, and I didn't realize it until I was leaving because it's posted on a bulletin board inside the store, inside, that you can't carry a gun. And I'm going, oh.
And what's the statute of limitations on this?
Well, the statute of limitation, I could be.
You can edit things, right? Just white noise, and
we're just gonna cut that right out. Oh my goodness! All right,
not worried about it.
Well, I know the Supreme Court is starting to hand down the decisions from. You were saying that they hear cases basically in October, and then in the summertime we start hearing the results of them. I think there's still a couple of important. And I would have called them maybe Second Amendment cases, but you're saying they're procedural cases. Do you have any sense on anything that maybe we're going to hear in the next, few days here?
The only other one that's outstanding is Rahimi, which was the one that is a tough one. That one came out of the Fifth Circuit. Like I said, not haven't seen something they weren't willing to strike down. Terrible vehicle for it. It was a criminal prosecution that the constitutionality of the statute was challenged. You read the facts surrounding it, and it just gets worse and worse and worse to a degree. But there are some interesting things raised there, and so for those that don't know, Rahimi was arrested and charged with violation of 922 G8. I think it's 8, which deals with those who are under a domestic violence restraining order in possession of a firearm. They're a prohibited person. When you read the statute, one of the things that those individuals are required to have is notice and an opportunity to participate in a hearing before that restriction can be applied to them. So you're like, okay, he had a domestic violence restraining order. Like, all right, maybe he deserved it, maybe he didn't. Wasn't at the hearing, don't know. Judges like to, protect people or think they're protecting people and issue this. And then you read more facts about Rahimi. Shot his gun at a car, did this. Like, it was a number of shootings within a very short period of time. Like, okay, this is not the best vehicle for this. So anyway, the Fifth Circuit struck down the federal statute, finding that it was unconstitutional and that there was nothing in the nation's history and tradition that would support such a prohibition on an individual. The prohibited persons issue, generally speaking, is a very interesting one because right now you have circuits who have said, doesn't matter even if you're a non-violent misdemeanor that is federally prohibited, you can't bring a challenge to your prohibited nature. And you have other circuits like the Third Circuit that have said, yep, we will grant relief to certain individuals convicted of non-violent misdemeanor crimes. And so this is the first one where I think you really get an individual who, according to at least the arrests, has a tendency and propensity for dangerousness. So I think the court is, I don't know when they'll announce it. We could see it by the time this airs. It may have already been announced, but we could see it this Thursday or Friday. And I expect it will be a very interesting opinion. The question is, what does the court do? How narrow do they go? Do they say, dangerousness is the test? We think that the statute itself is unconstitutional. However, as far as it relates to prohibited persons, because Rahimi has shown a propensity for dangerousness by shooting and these other things, that, as applied to him, maybe that this stands. And so maybe the statute isn't unconstitutional, although I don't know.
But Alan, so what I'm confused with is because the Constitution doesn't say anything that shall not be infringed. So it doesn't say, well, if you have a domestic violence case or if you're a violent person. So where's the line?
That's why it's tough, because if he is too dangerous to be trusted with a firearm,
he should be in jail then
he should be removed from society, right? But if we're going to trust him in society to not find or steal a gun, then you know what I mean? Like, where does where's the line? It is such a difficult case. But I feel like it's one of those, how Bill of Rights are you? You know what I mean? Like,
well, when we were kids,
it's sort of like that First Amendment. I hate what you're saying,
but
I will support your right and your ability to say it. But I'm sorry, Dan.
Well, we always thought that, I mean, I grew up, I didn't know a lot, but said that if you were a felon, then the Constitution does not work for you. You're not part of the, you're not part of the system.
Right. But did you pay your debt to society?
So,
or did you not?
So the thing is, the reason why I bring this up is because we've drawn so many lines, we've lost so many rights because of this. But the Constitution is very clear. So I just wonder where the line is. I agree. If the guy's going out shooting people and shooting guns out in the street, what do we do? But where does it say that we can do that? Because if you believe in the Constitution and everything about the Constitution, then that doesn't take that right away from that guy.
So the Supreme Court has said that it's based on the text of the Second Amendment. So is that conduct protected under the Second Amendment, which right to keep and bear arms certainly is, as informed by our nation's history and tradition. And the Supreme Court, just for some clarity here, has also said that in the context of other amendments. So we have what the text of the amendment says, but what was the tradition and what did the founding era do? And so when we look at that, when individuals were deemed to be dangerous, now there's a very scholarly debate as to that. They were disarmed. And the reason I say there's a scholarly debate is because if you look at who was disarmed under the dangerousness, you would have Indians, you would have Catholics, you would have loyalists and things like that. And so clearly there was a desire, as far as the loyalists anyway, to prevent insurrection in a newly formed country and during a war for our independence, for that matter. But right. So those are interesting questions. I don't claim to have the answers on all of that, but what the Supreme Court has said is what was, the understanding at the time of the founding when these were adopted. And I guess we're fortunate in some sense that we have a number of historical sources that we can look to try to develop a accurate understanding of what that was, because we're not talking all that long ago. People weren't still writing on stone tablets, fortunately for us. But yes, it's not an easy thing. And the other thing is, the felon issue. I put on at least one CLE for defense lawyers, and I posed a question to them. I said, how many of you think that a felon can own a gun? And nobody in that room raised their hand. I said, okay. How many of you think that people who are convicted of misdemeanors can own guns regardless of what the misdemeanor was? And there was a number of hands that went up. And the reality is that that's not the case. You look at 922 G1, which is the single most prohibiting thing in the list of prohibitions. And it basically says that felony, you're out of luck. And if you're convicted of a state law misdemeanor, that's punishable by more than 2 years imprisonment. So it only has to be punishable by. You don't actually have to serve a day in jail. But if it could be punished by 2 years and 1 day in jail, you're federally prohibited from possessing firearms.
Wow.
I didn't realize
And
that.
then on top of that, you look at legislatures who have decided that they're going to call things felonies and add the felony label to it. Now you have a whole swath of the population that can't exercise their Second Amendment rights simply because of what the legislature decided to designate it. And then you compare that to what felonies used to be, where it was like murder, rape, a very few and far between crimes to what it's been extrapolated to. And all of a sudden it everybody's prohibited for something.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. Fascinating. I really didn't know that about the misdemeanor.
Most
That's
people
kinda
don't.
Scary, especially if like you're pleading, like
Yes.
taking a plea deal, and they're like, well, let's do it for 26 months, and you might go, okay, whatever, that's fine. But you've just sacrificed your
Without
right
no,
to
that's
bear arms.
and that's been the biggest problem, is that you'll get defense attorneys and people who even ask their defense attorneys, will this affect my gun rights? And everybody always forgets we're always dealing with two bodies of law. You have federal law and you have state law. So a lot of times what I found in my experiences is that the attorney will look at the state law. Nope, you're good. But they'll have no idea that there's a federal law, and 922 G1 being the federal law that traps everybody. So these people will plead guilty and, go to buy a gun, get denied, not know why. Sometimes have the police show up at their door for, making false statements on the form. Something the Pennsylvania State Police were doing for a long time. And, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't. Or I've been buying guns for all these years, and all of a sudden now I'm getting denied because the court finally decided to submit the record of, a guilty plea or conviction.
Oh,
It's a
that's
messy world.
terrifying. It
It
really
is.
is.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, thank you so much for all that you do and for all of the time that you've given to us. Could you tell folks, just as we start wrapping up, how they can continue to follow and support all of the work that SAF does?
Sure. So the best place is the website, which you've mentioned. It's saf.org. You can join, donate, check out our legal work. We have case pages for each case that's going on and other information, as well as giveaways we do. Social media, you can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those are all at, everything except Twitter is at Second Amendment Foundation. On Twitter, it's at 2AFDN. And that's also a great place to get updates as to what's going on at the Second Amendment Foundation. And, we hope to see you at GRPC.
Fantastic. Thank you again so much. We look forward already to the next time that we have you on and unpack whatever the latest cases are that you guys are tackling.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank
Keep up
you.
the good work, Adam. Thank you.
See you in San
Bye.
Diego. Bye-bye.
Wow. I have
Yeah.
500 other questions. I mean, you
Yeah.
would think that a violent crime,
Mhm.
but again, where does the Constitution say,
Mhm.
where does the Second Amendment say that if you commit a crime,
There's no
you-
asterisk.
right? So
That's-
it's so hard, but so I say, okay, well, if you have a violent crime, then it would apply, but then I'm making a line.
Mhm.
I'm creating something. They've been creating all these loopholes
Mhm.
all these years, and really there shouldn't be any. It should be clear cut.
Yeah.
So it's hard because I don't want felons that are violent people carrying guns,
Right.
but I believe in the Constitution. Well, when it's convenient for me, I believe in it.
Right.
Or do I say this is the Constitution? We stick to the 27 words
Yeah.
of the Second Amendment.
I say let's
That's-
stick to the 27 words for
But it's
for
hard.
reals.
Yeah, because we could probably, we could probably clear out the others.
Mhm.
We'll take care of it. We don't need the prisons.
I'm telling you,
But-
it's
but
a
it's-
nutty thing.
yeah.
But
Just like the red flag law.
yeah,
It's like you take away their guns, you haven't really
Solved
stopped
anything.
anything.
right.
Because they're
It's
going to
the
use a car,
person.
they're going to use the gun you didn't know they had.
Exactly.
If they're that violent, then put them away.
Exactly.
But anyway,
All right.
Adam, I really appreciate you being here today. This was awesome.
Yeah.
It's got me sparked up.
Yeah, no doubt. And thank you so much to all of our amazing listeners all over the planet, wherever there's internet, where we have viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to go back and watch this video or any of our videos that we've ever put out, you can go to YouTube and GunStreamer or the OpsLens smartphone app. When you go to those platforms, please click the subscribe and notification button, because that gives us a little hedge against the cancel culture that's out there, and lets those platforms know that you value these conversations and the subject matter experts that we bring on. If you want to listen to the audio only version, because maybe you're out on a long drive or, mowing the yard or laying out by the pool, whatever the case may be, you can go to our website, gunfreedomradio.com, click the on demand tab, and
Binge listen to your heart's content.
darling. Very good. If you want to see photos and bios and links to all the works that all of our guests have ever done that we've had on the show, click the guest tab. It is an ever-growing body of amazing subject matter experts. And when you spend time there, we don't hate that. All right. We have a couple of...
Yeah, what if I wanted a snack? I'm going to reverse it a little
Oh,
bit.
you're going to reverse it?
Yeah, I'm
Well,
going to throw you off a
you're
little bit.
throwing me off,
Like-
because if you like American-made
Oh,
snacks,
that's the only kind of.
like these amazing Simply Fit snacks that we always like to munch on in between episodes of the show, you can join an invitation only, and this is your invitation. Dan and I are inviting you, private online shopping club that actually supports SAF, the organization that we've been talking about this entire time. Every dollar you spend there, a small portion of that goes to support SAF and all of the work they do, and a small portion comes to us at Gun Freedom Radio to support our work. So this private invitation only shopping club helps you and millions of families snip the cord, cut the cord on shopping at those big conglomerate stores that actually use your money to diminish all of our freedoms. Where SAF, they use their money that you help them with to expand our freedom.
So we're actually taking the money away from the big box chain stores that are taking our,
Exactly.
and we're using that money to help organizations. to
And
fight.
you're supporting American jobs on American soil, making American-made products, from laundry soap to skincare to delicious snacks, and even great ground beef and steaks through the Riverbend Ranch brand. You can shop online as you need it, or what I do is I set the order and forget it, and it shows up on my doorstep. Easy, simple, convenient, great products, quality. All you need to do is go to patriothousehold.com/GFR for Gun Freedom Radio, and that will support the organizations that I just described.
So
And
now I've ate, I'm full, and I want to go out and like exercise and go shooting, but it's so hot and my gun slips every time I shoot.
Right. So then you need Locked In Grip, created by Brian and Shelley Hill of The Complete Combatant. This is a liquid shooting sports chalk, no slip, better traction, heightened connection for safer, faster shooting. It is made for shooters by shooters. Get some for yourself today by going to lockedingrip.com. We've got to get on out of here. What are we going to do until next time, Dan?
Pray for this nation, especially with elections coming.
Exactly. Pray for our leaders. What about the ones we don't like? Yes. Yes. Maybe especially the ones we don't like. I see you very, very committed to that, Dan. Very committed to praying for the people you don't like. All right. Until next time, be good to each other. Have a great week and God bless.
Bye-bye.